Effective answers are not made in the labs. They are not created by formula. They are created by practice and experience. You can all read a number of books. End of the day, when you look at a PYQ, you might feel lost. You might feel that, okay, this is not understandable. So this QP program exactly gives you that advantage. More or less, your concept needs, your content needs, your answer writing analysis, your PYQ understanding, right? Contemporary developments, they will all be taken care of by this QP Plus program. End of the day, this is not a PhD program. End of the day, it's not a degree program. We need to get marks. We need to get marks by keeping the fundamentals of understanding and study thing. If one is smart enough and one knows how UPSC thinks, you imagine how many marks you could have got. The problem is that we prepare for 100%, we perform only 20%. Public administration is the heart and soul of that bureaucracy. And any student of UPSC cannot ignore, whether directly or indirectly, the study of the subject. Then why not to do it and multiply it? You don't need to be a Superman, you don't need to be an Einstein, right? You need to be an aspirant with relevant knowledge. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this session on QEP Plus. That's the introduction session today. I'm Ashutosh Pandey and I'm faculty of Public Administration at Sarrthi IAS. And today is going to be a very informal interaction. Most of you might have read or you're still in the process of studying the optional Public Administration. There are certain basic things that we'll talk about today. First, how this program is going to follow, right? What is going to be the basic timetable and the process of this program. Secondly, right, what exactly are we going to do? That is the actual function, actual activity that we are going to perform. Third, how it is going to enhance and improve your overall understanding. And the most important aspect is, application of that understanding in the form of an effective answer. Effective answers are not made in the labs. They are not created by formula. They are created by practice and experience. So effective answer writing is, I would say, more of an art than a science. There is a science part that we can learn, but art is the application. So the more you apply, the better answers you will write. Fourth is, are there any unique aspects and concepts in this study or in this subject, right, that you must know about? So there are a lot of unique things which we generally miss when we are studying, or maybe we have not studied to that depth, which can help us understand the PYQs, the questions which are designed in the examination. Might seem a mismatch between the questions and what we do, right? So we'll talk about that also. So let us first start with very basic things, right? That what exactly does the examiner want? How do you prove, how do you understand, how do you calculate or evaluate that you are doing well? You're on the right track of preparation. How do you know that? Knowing this is not easy. You can all read a number of books. End of the day, when you look at a PYQ, you might feel lost. You might feel that, okay, this is not understandable. And why this is not understandable? Not because I've not read a lot, right? But probably I have not been able to understand or evaluate my preparation. So this QP program exactly gives you that advantage. It fine-tunes your skill. It improves your understanding of the content that you have done. It adds content to the existing knowledge. It gives you more conceptual lens, a more evolutionary understanding of the subject. And somewhere it gives you the tools and the techniques by which you can use and apply this knowledge right into your answers. Fine. So let us start with simple things today. Right? So this is basically for 20. So what does this mean? Now, obviously, there are certain components, right? There are 4 components. Class. We'll have, let's say, 2 to 3 classes a week, right? Initially, we might have less classes because obviously, first you need to learn things, then you'll apply it. So you have class, which has 2 aspects. One is the revision, what you have done, plus the concept that you probably know or you don't know. Or many of these ideas you have not been able to understand, right? In reality, studied, not understood, right? Labor lost, right? So we'll try to regain that effort that you have done, right? So generally there will be 2 classes or initially classes, right? Then these classes will have application. The application will have 2 parts. One, understanding PYQ and writing PYQ. Why this process? This process is very important because this is going to, right, bring right perspective to your knowledge. What you have studied, it will bring the right perspective to that. So writing and understanding, right? When you write, right, you'll find gaps, right? You will see lack of information, right? You'll find conceptual gaps, which obviously this will fulfill, right? But even though when you write, you might feel that okay, things that I've learned, things that have been taught, right? There is a need to again revise that. So when you will be able to write, you will be able to understand these problems, right? Also, writing requires a lot of other aspects, right? For example, one very important aspect of writing is aesthetics. You might call it as structure, fine, presentation. What is structure? What is presentation? Right? Vocabulary. Specific to a subject, but still, right? The need for English vocabulary is there because you will not be able to present something if you do not have adequate vocabulary, right? That will be developed through the classes, right? So this part is also essential, and that is the application, right? Now, then do we know the application of this knowledge, right? Or answer writing, do we understand how it is linked, how it is related to contemporary perspectives? Fine. So see, current or dynamic aspects. So this dynamic has to be linked with the static. When you say dynamic is not only India, it's not governance issues and problems in Indian context, right? The dynamic developments are happening across the theory or theoretical knowledge that is also evolving. Fine. So in simple way, whatever theories you are studying, and you might feel that these theories are fixed, and reading Prasad and Prasad or Sapru or Mohit Bhattacharya or to that extent certain books, they are going to fulfill this need or gap. They will not be able to do it because there are a lot of theoretical developments taking right presently while you are studying your static subject. Also, these current perspectives are visible in governance, right? What is happening around you? What things, reforms, initiatives, right? Various other kinds of initiatives or decisions government is taking. There are a lot of judicial reviews, judgments, reforms in laws, policies, programs, a lot of things we are reforming and changing, right? That must fit into this content, right? Again, when you write the answer, it will improve. So, understanding, writing, and then viewing it with the lens of the current developments. Both the developments, right? Theoretical developments mostly in paper 1. Governance developments mostly in paper. Right? Then what comes? Then comes, obviously all this is known, you are doing it, you are practicing it, then you need to summarize. How will you develop a good content which is ready made and that can be used in the examination? Right? You can say that yes, democracy is the hardware on which or which runs on the software of public administration. See, democracy cannot exist, it cannot function if there is an effective public administration. If there is no system of administration, the democracy will not function. And somewhere understanding that is very crucial to the understanding of subject. So how do we summarize this entire knowledge, right? This entire course or process that we are following, right, into the mains ready answer. Now, these are 4 fundamental things which this program will address, and this will try to fulfill, right, during the classes that we are going to take. Now, another aspect is also there that whenever we are able to complete this, then what is the process after this? Do we need to revise more? Do we need to write again? Right? See, more or less your concept needs, your content needs, your answer writing analysis, your PYQ understanding, right? Contemporary developments, they will all be taken care of by this QEP Plus program. Yes, there is a format and obviously format has to be followed. But let us say, even after this, if you feel there is a need for certain updates, right? We'll add some classes, obviously once we are over through this process, before you give your mains, right? We can have some, what we can say, the value addition classes. We need certain brownie points. Right? We need to understand certain aspects of this subject so that a lot of things come from, a lot of things can be applied and used in public, from public administration into general studies. Right? So a lot of things you study in GS, they seem to overlap in public administration, mostly paper 2, right? And this is where a very important aspect comes, that somewhere our language, our vocabulary, our knowledge, our content must be able to distinguish this difference between them, right? It seems easy, right? But when you apply it, seems little difficult. So we'll try to tell you also, right, the distinctive nature. Because many people will say, oh, it is just GS. No, it is not. Right? When I'm talking about, let us say, example of corruption. Right? So obviously I know what is corruption. I can define corruption. I can understand corruption through the Prevention of Corruption Act 1988 as modified and amended in 2018. Right? I can understand these things. I can understand Lokpal Act and Lokpal Law, right? Or Whistleblowers Protection Act, Public Services Act, right? Or citizen charters. I can understand all this, right? But when you think of corruption, you should also think, right, of why Wilson, the father of public administration, right, talks about dichotomy. Think of that. If you don't think of that, you might be well versed and happy that okay, GS and PubAd overlap. Yes, they overlap. But then, right, is the answer in paper 2 of PubAd Would purely that be comprising of the general studies facts? Or should there be something more? That is something more that you need to understand, that you need to learn. And this is where the difference is, right, between 240, 230 and 290 or 300. There's a difference, right? The way you start thinking, that is the way you'll start writing. Fine. So end of the day, Wilson's dichotomy, or let me give you another interesting idea which is there. You might be knowing, might not be knowing. Frederick, Finer debate. So end of the day, you all need, right, a relevant understanding to score marks. End of the day, this is not a PhD program. End of the day, it's not a degree program. We need to get marks. We need to get marks by keeping the fundamentals of understanding and study same. Right? We cannot do some, extraordinary changes because we have our skills, we have our own strength, and we have our own weaknesses. So this program will take forward in this idea and help you understand that how, very interestingly, in a very simple way, how paper 1 plus paper 2 linkages are developed. Right? What distinguishes an average answer from a good answer? Right? Or I would say from an average answer versus the relevant answer. And see, it will never come only by writing answers. It will also come by learning those things which are necessary to write those answers. So to write the answer, you need to know the content. Right? QP is exactly going to solve that problem for you. And that problem solving can be a process of debate and interaction, right? It should not be just one-way model of writing or dictating and writing. That is illogical. So we'll go through that process right now. So let's see what exactly we'll do. Now see. So let's understand your syllabus or your syllabi. Right? Majorly, this syllabus is divided into two papers, paper 1, paper. Public administration is the most practical, simplest, easiest, commonsensical optional that you can ever study. The problem is common sense is not so common, right, which creates a problem. It creates a kind of limitation, right? So, but if you start applying your day-to-day understanding to this, it will become very easy for you. Now see, paper 1, right, is mostly about theories and descriptive knowledge, right? It tells you what is public administration, what dimensions of public administration do we study, how did it evolve, who are the people who contributed originally to the development of this subject, where was this subject born, right? What are its basic principles and premises? What are its various constituents or components that you need to study, right? Without which you cannot understand what is public administration. Descriptive. Fine. This comprises of 12 units. Paper 2 is applied. Fine. Even theories can be applied, but this is applied means what? Right? It is minimum of theory. Theory is not that important, but yes, there is theory. Right? Plus, this theory is basically trying to understand the realistic public administration in India. What is going to be or what is happening in the context of this India. right? What has been the source, what has been the basis of emergence of administration in India? How Indian administration functions? What are the historical roots? How did it develop? As you know, from Mughal to colonial to the present democratic system in India, we try to understand all those things, right? See, so this has basically 14 units, right? All together you have 26 units. Now, obviously, a beginner will try to understand these units, right? And slowly he'll comprehend that yes, how these all units are interconnected, right? They are part of the same subject, right? One is general understanding of administration, other is specific understanding of Indian administration, right? Now, the strategy to study unit by unit, good, not bad, right? But this is only coverage, right? Not preparation. Coverage of syllabus is not preparation. The fundamental error with most of us do, and we suffer over the time. And that is why we have to go for small programs and modules and many other things, right? Because we have covered, right? But we are not prepared. So this coverage of syllabus, reading of syllabus, and the preparation for the exam, that is addressed through this QP program, right? There is a big fundamental difference, right? Coverage is knowing who Wilson is, right? What is Weber's theory? Yeah, Weber's bureaucracy. That is coverage. Features of bureaucracy. Coverage. Fine. What is preparation? Right? Is to understand what is fundamentally different between them. How are they talking about the same thing? Right? What are the features? What are the concepts which link them together? How do I apply this knowledge to my Indian administration? Can we link, right, this understanding to contemporary Indian developments? Can I use Taylor for suggesting reforms in Indian administration? Right? Now this is very important part. So when you look at this syllabus, you will majorly find that these 12 units and these 14 units, there are a lot of overlapping, right? Or there is a lot of connectivity. The small things, the micro things that you leave, right? Many times you do not know exactly which scholar to be used where and how adding one scholar can enhance my marks. How can I add extra one, right? By adding that name, by adding that definition, how can I get that extra 2 marks, right? That is what we have to learn. So there's a lot of overlapping, there's a lot of connectivity. You have to create a bridge between them. Fine, so we'll train you for that, right? There is a lot of connectivity within these units, right? Uh, Let me give you one simple example. If you can understand right now, right, it would be easy for you to understand. See, so when you look at paper 2, we find lot of prominence, right? I'll just discuss that is the third part, that how questions are designed and which topics are fundamentally dominant in both these papers, different papers. So how do I, let us say, right, we talk about administrative reforms. There is a chapter topic in paper 2, administrative reforms since independence. Now many of you will narrowly try to understand what is administrative reforms. A narrow understanding, right? Karmyogi mission. Sir, we are making reforms, rules, laws, regulations, CRPC, IPC, BNS and this, correct? Now understand this in two ways. One, the reforms which we are doing, in the system of administration, that is bureaucracy. The system, the design, organization, that is administration. Secretaries, DGPs, collectors, right? Junior engineers, forest officers. This is the system of administration, right? Offices, organizations. We are doing changes there, yes, right? But also, are we doing changes how we are governing? How we are using these systems to govern, to do things in the society? Are we changing that also? Right? So, is administrative reform since independence, is it only about this? No. Right? It is also about how the nature of role, how the nature of administrative role and nature of administrative effort and initiatives have changed, how the nature of functioning of administration has evolved, what problems and issues of society, right, are today, which may be distinct from what were there when we started in 1950s. So see, societal goals, they also are a kind of reform, right? Earlier we were talking about roti kapda makan. Now we are talking about, oh, iPhone, right? Electricity, cylinder, right? A car, good roads and highways and expressway. Today we are talking about a lot of new things, right? Is that development? Yes. Was that development then? Yes. So obviously you have to understand that societal goals change over time. Now see, if you understand administrative reforms, right, various committees, now from various committees in the beginning to, let's say, second ARC today, right, from first ARC in 1966 to second ARC in 2005, how are we going to reinterpret this change? Now see, that will make you smart. This analysis will give you the understanding of the syllabus better, right? And same can be applied to paper 1. Same logic can be applied to understanding of paper 1 plus 2. I hope you are able to understand this. Right. Now our next part is, obviously, what do we need? We need now to understand, right, what are the, right, zoom in, zoom out areas? What are the focus areas which we need to focus on in paper 1? The areas to be focused in paper 2, so that, right, our effortless, seamless preparation is done. How we can read 50-60% of the topics and still we can score 150% of the questions, right? Why I'm saying that? Because you have to solve 5 out of 8 questions that you can always do. Question 1 and 5 are compulsory. Let's understand that also, right? So let us see the structure of exam. How exam is conducted, how we need to understand this also, right? Before we start studying, before we start fighting, we should know our enemy or adversary very well. Okay. Right, let's say, fine. So you have 2 papers, as you know. Fine. Each paper is divided into 2 sections. Section A, Section B. Section A has 4 questions. Section B has 4 questions. Fine. Question 1 and question 5. 1 to 4, 5 to 8. Right? So there are 8 questions divided into 2 sections. 4, 1 to 4 here, 5 to 8 here. Question 1 and 5 compulsory. right? There is no choice here. You have to do them, right? This question one, now this is the biggest enemy that you have. This question is divided into 5 sub-parts. So roughly if I say there are 12 units, right, we can see in both these sections, we might find logically the distribution 6 plus 6 units, right? Again, same question 5 has 5 sub-parts, right? 10 marks each, 10 into 5, 15. So you have to write 5 questions of 50 marks, that is 250 marks, and ये है जो 10 again into 5, 15. Fine. Now this is a difficult part. Why it is difficult part? It is difficult to define these subparts. Even if you look at the syllabus properly and look at the PYQs properly, you can find out that which of these topics are frequently asked, repeatedly asked. At least we can know the themes, if not the exact dimension, right? We can know the themes. So you can at least find out, okay, that out of these 4 questions in section A, we might get questions on these themes. Section B, we might get questions on these themes, right? But this compulsory part, which has 5 questions or sub questions, it might pick up themes from across the paper, right? You might never say that here the question is not coming from here, it can come from here, right? Here the question is not coming from, it can come from here also. And what does it do, right? It makes your preparation, right, your understanding, or what you can say, a kind of practice that you do, right? This makes things more vulnerable, or let me simplify and say it makes things more unpredictable. Do I need to study everything? Can I predict to an extent what things can be asked? Fine. Do we have some very important notes, core notes that we can read and write the answer? Now see, there is the challenge, and the unique aspect or unique part is that, right, that these 10 markers, if you have to score 5, lot of effort, right? If you have to score 6, we'll talk about it, very difficult, because 10 mark, fine, maybe 125, 150 words pinpointed. The examiner is also focused, right, on the core which has been asked in the question. Now how do we address it? How can I, apply my knowledge? How can I show off my conceptual clarity in this 100 words, 125, 130 words? This is a big challenge. Right? See, here comes the benefit of concept, vocabulary, right? And what you can say, the common sense, quick thinking, how we can think, how we can write. A practice which has been done over a period of time, right, makes this process like a natural instinct. You don't have to think that much, you don't have that much of time. In fact, good strategy would be to score very well in these, because you can technically get objective marks here. So let's say a person is getting 4 out of 10, so he ends up getting 20, 20, 40 marks. A person is getting 6 out of 10, right? 5 out of 10, let's say 1 mark more. So 5 out of 10, 25, 25, 50 marks, that's 10 marks. End of the day, 10 marks can be the basis of entry and exit. Or 10 marks can be the basis of difference between the IAS coveted and just below that the IPS. 10 marks can be a difference between your overall within 100 and outside 100. Right? Or within the list and outside. You see the difference. We have to look into the micro aspects of preparation. We can talk about broad things, right? We can motivate ourselves by talking about practice, number of questions, PYQs. But you see, if you don't understand things at the micro level, right, you will never be able to spot the changes, the trends which UPSC is following. and following or understanding the trend is crucial to attempting the paper confidently. See, this is very important, right? Rest, obviously you have 3 questions here, right? And 3 questions here, out of which you have to do 3. 2 plus 3. So total 2 compulsory plus 3 out of 6. Fine. Choosing one mandatory from one section. Right. So you can choose 1 from here, 2 from here, 2 from here, 1 from here. Right. At least 1 more you have to choose from one section. Right. Now this is, now if I say, oh, what is a smart preparation? What is a smart strategy? Is to be able to perform or solve this 5 out of 8 questions. Those who want to solve 8 out of 8, obviously they are welcome, but then probably they will have to give the exam again and again and again, right? If you want to solve all the 8 questions, obviously they don't want you to do that. But imagine if you are preparing in that perspective. Illogical. Fine? It's not general studies. So technically, you have to know that what are the core focus, so what are the ideas, if I understand, right, that is going to help me also enter into the other topics as well, right? How my other topics can be very easily associated with these topics. Smart preparation, saving time, yeah, developing a strong vocabulary. This strong vocabulary can take you right throughout the insights of the question, because obviously you can understand them better. Exploring various dimensions because you understand them better. So this is the structure of exam, this is the structure of paper, right? Same logic is visible for paper 1, for paper 2, right? Now, let us see the core topics, right? I am talking about those which are inevitable, karna hi karna, you cannot skip them. So I'll start with paper 1, 4 topics with paper 1, right? Kindly take a pen and paper. If you want to write, you can write it, right? If you are smart and genius, no doubt, you can just listen to it, fine? But end of the day, you have to write it. What are these topics? See, very important topic is evolution of public administration. I'll not tell everything, right? But I'll give you broad ideas because there is something to be left for the class as well, right? In the class also, when we start actually the classes, then we'll understand, right? Especially when you say Nicholas Henry Para 6 paragraphs. Fine. Evolution of public administration. Okay. Then within this, evolution of organizational theories. Very important. So public administration as a subject evolved, and the major content of PubAd comes from the theories of organization. So this you have to study broadly. I can divide it into 3, right? Classical. I'm just giving you a structure, right? Not the exact class that we'll discuss in detail. Classical, behavioral, right? Post-modernist or post-modern, right? We can also study something called post-behavioral. I'm not using the term, you might be confused. Leave it. Majorly, most of the theories, right? Your unit 1, 2, 3, they are so evolution of organization theories, right? Classical, this, right? So within this, the most important aspect, right, that we need to know, one is Taylor, fine, Weber, Fayol, no doubt Mayo, then scholars like Bernard and Simon, right, and many others now. But she frequently dominated the paper one, right. Then let's see, topic is Wilson's essay. This also evolution, right? Wilson being the father of public administration, one of the key architects of the emergence and evolution of public administration in US, obviously. So how this shaped Wilson's essay, his idea of politics, administration, dichotomy, right? And many questions on the idea of science of administration. Science of administration, and many of you will try, when we'll study, you will understand, right, that how, right, Wilson, right, and Taylor had certain common aspects. But Wilson's essay is very important. Every year questions come, they are designed, right, especially on the dichotomy perspective and science of administration, like I told you, knowledge and application both. Right, then your OB, organizational behavior. Right, here one of the topic is participatory management, fine, leadership, motivation, communication, decision making. And likewise, there are various ways, right? For example, when you say today's protests, right? Or today's democratic processes, people's participation, use of technology, what is it doing? Changing the communication, language, vocabulary, short forms, WhatsApp, chats, Twitter or X. What are they doing? They are changing the way governance is conducted, or governance is functioning, or it is happening as communications change. The student movements which impacted the governments, right, or students acting as pressure groups, or for that matter an organized resistance, they are primarily the products of communication. Instagram is a communication. It's a platform, right? But it's a particular way of communication, the model of communication that affects you, that impacts you and your decisions. Think about it, right? How technology is shaping the interaction of government and people. So, Man Ki Baat or whatever, MyGov, there are a lot of ways by which we are doing it, right? Decision making, right? How complex it was for police to act in a particular situation. Communalism, conflicts, violence, how difficult it is for an administrator to think and act in a short span of time. How difficult it is for us to make decisions when we have lot of information around us. Problem of plenty, again. Pop, huh? Problem of plenty. Lot of decisions, right? Lot of choices on shadi.com, right? How will you marry, right? By the time you make a choice, right, your age of getting married is over. Same policy making, decisions of the government, lot of things are impacted by huge data analysis. Fine. So we'll study those things also, very important, visible throughout the paper. Right. Then there are some contemporary developments. Okay, let me write here itself. Contemporary developments, right? We try to understand how the traditional administration, the way it is functioning, the traditional knowledge about administration, how that has changed. Or when we say contemporary, let's not take this last 10 years, but let's take the cutoff point as 1990s. Why 1990s? Because see, 1990s, what happened? Fine. What happened? We got McDonald's, right? We got televisions and computers, 1980s onwards, right? We got stylish jeans and t-shirts. We got a lifestyle, probably Western lifestyle. What happened? We went for LPG reforms, new economic policy, right? Also, one of the key contribution of Rao Manmohan model. Let's say in India, right? Globally, what happened, right? Obviously, 1919 onwards, the forces of globalization started. And imagine simple things. When the globalization will take place and the things will change, right? Your country's boundaries will be open. Will your administration not be affected? If you start consuming more burgers, right, than curry chawal, will your administration be bothered? Yes, it will be. And you might say, how, sir, this is not possible, personal choice. No, right? When McDonald's will enter, there will be need to regulate. There will be need for licensing. There will be need for quality, right? There will be need for complaint resolution. There will be need for the impact of this cultural change, right? Lifestyle, food, habits, many things on the society. Consumption pattern, consumer culture, materialism. See, your pub ad is not affected. Yes, it is affected. Your administration gets impacted. The way you are administering till now is not to be administered hereafter. Change. So globalization brings a lot of change, a lot of theoretical ideas are there, a lot of scholars are there related to them. Right? Some view it is good, some view it is bad, some view it is neutral. Fine. So we have all the type of ideas regarding globalization by idealist perspective, realist view, fine, neutral view, right? Positive, that is neoliberal view. Now many of you don't be scared of these terms, they are very easy. Fine. It is just like your FOMO, right? LOL, YOLO, right? JOMO, whatever that you read, it's much easier than that. Fine. So let us say, imagine these changes. Now these are quite prominent in the examination, very prominent. In fact, 2025 paper, if you see mains 2025 paper, right, whatever you say, right, this was a very conceptual paper and it was easy because see, whatever themes we find dominant, the questions were on the same line. So there is a pattern which we can understand if we are doing things more conceptually. Easy to find out. Right? Imagine 50% of the paper coming from certain themes only. If one is smart enough and one knows how UPSC thinks, you imagine how many marks he could have got. The problem is that we prepare for 100%, we perform only 20%, right, in the examination. Let's prepare for 75%, which covers obviously your 100%, and let us perform, right, 60, 70, 80% out of that 75%, right, the work is done. Fine, see. So, topics like this, contemporary topics, right, mainly globalization, right, ideas of good governance, developments like new public management, right, new public administration, new public governance, NPG, neo-Weberian state, right, or for that matter, a public value approach, right? Don't be scared. Like I told you, they are very easy, much easier than the terms you are using. Fine, and a lot of things, right? Whole of government approach, a lot of things are there which we'll study. But you see,
Lot of questions around these ideas. And now they are not restricting only to asking them. They are linking this to the rest of the syllabus. Right? A very interesting question was asked. I know you might be, many of you might be very young, right? Or you might be just starting, so don't be bothered about it. Fine? Don't be scared. It is easy. Right? So they had asked very interesting questions. Right? For example, see this, or digital era governance, right? That is the application of ICT. You know e-governance, obviously. Fine. You study that in your governance paper majorly. Now, simple idea, right, is e-government equal to e-governance? Right? No. But government is necessary for e-governance, yes. It is in the same logic that we remove EE, let's cut, eh? Let's make it a more easy proposition, right? E governance, right? If I cut this, technically, is government equal to governance? No. So when we add E to it, is it equal to? No. Right? Governance is a far bigger phenomenon. It is how governments govern. So the focus of governance is not government, right? It is the mannerism, it is the way, it is the application of the authority and power that you have given to the government, and how does it apply and use it for the society, for running the society more efficiently. Okay? Now see. So these certain areas are very influential in your paper 1, right? Then certain aspects like administrative law, right? This is a topic, again, very simple but yet complex. Simple है, but complex क्यों if you don't know the concept. Comparative public administration, development administration, public policy. If you do this, you can do any question in this paper. If you just do this, if you do it conceptually, you practice, you are able to link these ideas with the rest of the topics. Fine, it's done. You don't need anything more than that. Right? Obviously, scoring 500 out of 500, right? Probably we are not the appropriate person for that. Fine. Neither we can make such promises to you, which obviously will be more divine in nature. Right? God's promise ho sakta hai, God would be promising you. Right? That cannot happen. So let us say if we are realistic, we work hard. We can attempt 500 out of 500, or we can attempt a very good paper, and we can accept that yes, out of this 60-70%, right, 60-65% I can score because I have, right, a focused approach towards my preparation. That is preparation, right, not the coverage of syllabus. Right. Now let me give you simple insight into this. When you look at paper 2, the most dominant theme of paper 2 is local government. Panchayati Raj institution. Right? Very big dominant theme, right, is administrative reforms. Right? Administrative culture. Very important. Fine. Then themes like union, state relations. Right? And इसमें prominently what are these? Fiscal relations. Right? Federalism. Modern themes. Now these themes means lot of syllabus, a lot of aspects of your syllabus can be linked into this. And this will give you a meaningful understanding how questions are asked. It's not just coverage of the topic, but also to understand how questions are designed and what can be asked. And this is the most appropriate thing to understand so that you can write your answers. Right? Federalism, fiscal federalism. Fine. Then important theme, planning, public sector undertakings. Again, very important theme. Fine. Constitutional values, district collector. Very important. Changing role of district collector, changing profile of district collector, right? District administration and the scenario which has changed, right? Especially just now we talked about in paper one. If you want to understand how links will be developed, let us see. In paper one, you just talked about what, right? LPG reforms, globalization. Now the examiner will ask how globalization has impacted the district collector's role. Is he still the my baap? Is he still the Sarkar? Right? Is he still the center or the little Napoleon of the district? Is he still that? No. Things have changed. Right? You are the center right now. We are the center right now. Right? The administrative officials, the bureaucrats have been made to serve us. The change is there. Is it happening? Now that is again fine. Themes, very important. See. Then contemporary issues. It's a very important theme. Issues like corruption, right? Issues like coalition politics, right? Disaster management, fine. Human rights, fine. Then another very important area is emerging is basically urbanization or urban development. You can also add rural development, not rural governance, rural development. So development is emerging an important area of study. Urban or rural development, right? UPSC is quite conscious about knowing these certain things. Like when you talk about urban development, you see the problems of urban governance versus the problems of rural governance. Right? Housing for all, rural housing. Pradhan Mantri Gramin Awas Yojana. Urban housing, right? But urban housing also may include slum development or slum reforms, not just development, yes. But I would say yes, the improvement in the already existing infrastructure of the urban areas. Rural areas, there are a lot of landless, already peasants, right? People who are already vulnerable. And there are a lot of problems they already have. Survival issues are there. Agriculture is declining. Now, see, when a government is focusing on rural development, there are a lot of new parameters which will be added compared to urban development. Urbanization is happening faster than we actually anticipated. One of the biggest problem is to define urbanization. Now, obviously, when you administer, when you want to govern these urban areas, you have to first know and define urbanization in a proper manner. Right? You are missing as a policy. What are you doing? You are missing, right? Lot of hidden urban. This को बोलते हैं peri-urban areas. So hidden urban areas. So when you say Delhi NCR, these are small towns, right? Hamlets, small villages, basically not even a village, which are known as tolas, basically, right? A kind of subdivision of a village. And many of them, right, are now developing near these small towns, transitional towns, and they are developing characteristics of a town. See, they know what Instagram reel is, they are making reels, right? But they are not getting education. The schools are not functioning properly, right? but they know how to use YouTube. They know how to monetize YouTube. See the difference. Urban characteristics and values, rural infrastructure. Challenge is immense. How can IAS, IPS, collectors deal with this kind of problems? How can governments deal with this problem? So you have to keep in mind this also, right? Similar to this, another area is women development. See, women empowerment, women reservation in politics, right? Role of women in administration, role of women in development, various strategies of women development, inclusive development. There are a lot of things, a lot of factors which impact women development. Why it is important? Because today, see, administration, governments, we are all focused on inclusive development, especially focused on women, right? We are prominently today following something called gender budgeting. Can you understand the implication of that? Beti bachao, beti padhao, right? Supernumerary reservations, right? Or equating to an extent the gender deficit which exists in many higher institutions of this country. Focusing on payment structures, promoting more inclusion of women in formal sector. See, most of them are in agriculture, informal sector, right? Ad hoc jobs they are doing. How to mainstream them? See, a lot of things. So a good PubAd student doesn't have to just talk about current issues, constitutional amendment, right? New policies, Karma Yogi mission. He also has to understand how all these developments fit into his syllabus. Unless you have this ability, unless you develop that skill, right? Every time you will be on the margins, you will be on the border, you might feel good about your preparation, right? But you will never feel confident about your preparation. So feeling good and feeling confident are two different things. So what do? Right? We follow a pattern. We follow a method, right? Let us develop a strategy step by step. Gradual brick by brick method. Develop and enhance the vocabulary of the subject that we are going to write. Utilize the leverage of this subject. Like I told you, democracy is the hardware which functions on the software of public administration, bureaucracy. The bureaucracy is the core which not only promotes or makes democracy efficient, but it also sustains democracy. Public administration is the heart and soul of that bureaucracy. And any student of UPSC cannot ignore, whether directly or indirectly, the study of this subject. Then why not to do it and multiply it, right? Why not to make it your friend rather than your enemy? Why not to utilize it or leverage its benefit in every aspect of this preparation? So when you say, when you know about corruption better, when you know administrative principles and theories, probably you can anticipate, you can interpret the case studies in ethics better. When you understand the several dimensions of administrative theories, you might be able to interpret corruption better, you might be able to interpret governance better. So end of the day, what is important is how do we qualify? End of the day, what is important is how do we qualify with a subject which is not only relevant, essential, inevitable, but also interesting. And most fundamentally, how do we know or how do we do or things that it makes it interesting without making it cheap, obviously, right? So we have to make it interesting. We have to think of possible ways by which we can remember the names, definitions, theories, right? Concepts. We also need to understand how we need to somewhere develop this ability, that how are we going to utilize this knowledge, right? Practically in the exam, where 3 hours we have to write non-stop. Can we do that? Do we have the ability, right, to think and write at the same time? Do we have the ability to take a mental pause? Obviously not physical pause from writing, but take a mental pause and restructure our answer so that it fits into the mold of the question which has been asked. Now these are very pertinent questions which any student of PABAT can relate to, any student of UPSC can relate to. So let us try to find out, let us try to explore those ideas, let us somewhere understand, develop, right, a strong interaction, a strong bridge, right, between the learners and the knowledge of public administration through this QEP program. So it is obvious that, right, we need to follow certain things in the beginning, right, as a matter of faith. Then obviously we need to develop the curiosity to question the faith. We can answer, we can question, we can debate. And then probably we can apply the knowledge that we have now developed through curiosity or interaction. Revision is must, writing is must, understanding, right, what areas or what strength and weaknesses one has, how to develop a subject specific vocabulary, what are the keywords, what are the key concepts, what are the key ideas around which an answer must be developed so that it doesn't cross the boundary, but it also doesn't end up being average. We have to work on that, right? And that's something which is a kind of collective effort, right? So for today, I would say this is enough, right? We'll start with the timetable that we have given you. We'll start with the actual integration of the topics and obviously the questions that we do. Like I've told you, we may have 2 to 3 classes, then we'll teach you, you will study, and then obviously questions will be given, and then we'll discuss that and you will write it. Obviously questions will be based on what has been taught to you, right? So that obviously teaching is not a foundation class. This somewhere understands that you might have basic knowledge, right? So all the best to all of you, right? Let's meet in the class. Let's find out what stuff toppers are made of. Let's find out what good answer, right? And obviously, having an experience of writing mains and interviews and teaching thousands of students, right? I can safely say that at least in few interactions, in few classes, at least I would be able to make out to an extent that what are the possible areas of reform and change which are needed. Right? You don't need to be a Superman, you don't need to be an Einstein, right? You need to be an aspirant with relevant knowledge and flexibility to apply that knowledge. All the best to you. See you in the class. Thank you so much. Enjoy your journey. All the best.